Thanks for stopping by. Just a couple of quick things I'd like to say before we get into the video proper. Firstly, I greatly appreciate your viewership, and I know that your time is precious, and my service videos may be a little too detailed for the casual viewer, whilst I do also still receive technical questions about the specific model being serviced. So to that end, I've decided to make two edits of my service videos: a shorter overview for general interest and to serve as a handy reference for servicing your own unit, but also I'll continue to produce the longer, more detailed videos as a reference guide, along with belt sizes and any other model specific service related information. Please contact me via my Buy Me a Coffee page, where I can happily provide the link to the full videos. Secondly, I'm only a small channel, so please do remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates. The majority of my viewers aren't subscribed. Also, weirdly, my unboxing videos often seem to receive more views than the actual service and repairs. So do please use the bell to ensure that you're notified and don't miss out when I add more content to the channel. Thanks again. Enjoy the video. Hello, welcome to the channel and thanks for joining me. We've got a really nice radio cassette recorder today that I wanted to take a quick look at, and that's the JVC RC-636. It dates from the late 70s, probably around 1978 or something like that. A very rare machine, not many of these about at all, especially in the UK where I am. And I love it because it's kind of like the ultimate love child between some of my favourite JVC units of the time. For example, it has the nice big white VU meter there, very reminiscent to the RC-646. It's got the general casing and detailing, knobs, switches, sliders and piano keys of the RC-828. It's also got the big square metal grilled speakers that look just like the RC-838. Also got that green detailing on the radio dial as well, which is reminiscent to the 838. So I just think it's wonderful. It's just all the best parts, if you like, of the bigger brothers of this one, all kind of homologated into this really sweet and still, I'm sure, very capable unit. Now, it's got a few features on here, nothing crazy, but still really nice for its time. And in no particular order then, we've got separate left and right volume sliders. We've got a master tone slider as well. It plays your regular type 1 and also the type 2 chrome tapes. And you've got a mono and stereo switch. And then you've basically got, in terms of the main function switch, you've got sleep, radio and indeed tape or off. The radio itself has got 4 bands. You've got the FM and you've also got long, medium and short wave with the corresponding fine tuning dial in addition to the master tuning dial on the side. Nice solid handle there as usual for the JVC units of the time with chrome ends. You've got your 2 fairly substantial speakers, no separate tweeters on this, but it does have 2 separate condenser mics built in the place of where tweeters may normally be found. You've got a built-in tape counter as well, and as I say, the VU meter, which shows the output level, the tuning strength on the radio and also the battery strength indicator as well. So I've had a look at this in a previous video. It's in a little bit of a bad way. I bought it online and it arrived pretty damaged, to be honest. I think it's been dropped or something. So the casing on the back is quite loose, and I do wonder whether or not 1 or 2 of the plastic mountings has actually been broken, so we'll need to address those. What else can I tell you? It needs a deep clean and a polish. The aerial is intact with the original tip and everything, but it is pretty pitted, so it will need a good polish. The FM doesn't seem to work very well. The left channel isn't outputting much volume at all, especially compared to the right channel. And the cassette doesn't work at all. I can't even hear the motor. So not only do the transport controls not do anything per se, it's not even switching on when you engage the transport controls. So I did a proper review of this in terms of the unboxing and appraisal in a previous video, so do go ahead and check out that, where I actually ran through it and tested to see what worked properly and what didn't. But for now, we're just going to take a quick look inside, crack it open, see if we can have a look, see what it's about, and see if we can start to get this thing repaired. Okay, let's go. So first up, I think it's time to remove this back cover. Like I say, I think some of the screws have become detached when it was dropped, but we'll see what we can do. Okie dokie, so we've got the radio board here, of course, with the ferrite rod antenna, your tuning capacitor just there, the various IF stages and mixers. That looks like a demodulating chip just there for the FM. This side is your power amp, and that is one heck of a flywheel. Look at that bad boy. Wow, that's a monster. That's got to be like, what, 3.5 inches across or something? It's huge. Belt feels very dry. I've got to say, it's very refreshing though, because more often than not, the belts on the units I've serviced lately have just turned to absolute goo and tar. So I'd much rather, got to be honest, I'd much rather it was like this, a bit dry, which might make it slippy, but at least we haven't got to clean it up so much. Right. Okay, but the issue we have though is there's no power getting to this at all. Whenever I press play, fast forward or rewind, I can't even hear the motor engaging. I can't hear any kind of pull either on the power system, so I don't even know if the motor's jammed. I don't think it is. At the moment the belt is too slippy probably to tell for sure, but I think there should be enough bite there that tells us that the motor is turning. As I say, I can't quite see from here. I can see the motor, but I can't see the spindle. So, alright. I think the first stage is to take the entire carriage out. Going to get all the mechanism out of this. And, yeah. Have a closer look. See if we can get to the mech. And then we can always feed the DC power onto these terminals here for safety later on, so we can figure out what's going on with the power supply. Also need to clean the switches as well, because the FM in particular wasn't working very well, and it certainly was dropping a channel, and I suspect it's more likely than not just a dirty switch just there. Right, I think the first thing, as I say, is we'll get the chassis out. Basically, yep, we've got a situation here where all we have is the speakers with a corresponding loom. Everything else basically is on the other board. Okay, so here's the main chassis part out then. We've got the radio board, of course, with the ferrite rod antenna and indeed your function selector switch just there, tuning capacitor, probably your FM multiplex chip just there, variable resistor for tweaking the stereo separation, which I think we might need to do because it did seem to be a bit sketchy on trying to find the FM stereo. They do drift over the years. Here is the belt. Massive flywheel, I've got to say, on this. About a 3.5 inch flywheel. It's ginormous. The belt itself, I'm delighted to say, hasn't actually degraded and turned to tar like so many units can over the years. This one's just a bit dry, but there is enough grip on it to suggest, there's enough bite to suggest that the motor isn't seized. Now, when I did try and press play on this, I did listen out for motor noise. Obviously there wasn't any kind of capacitive sort of power dump sound or pop through the speakers at any stage trying to engage any of the functions or piano keys on the cassette mech. So I just think there's no power getting to it at the moment. In terms of this side though, we've got a couple of screws. I'll just put this microphone back in so we don't lose it. Yeah, so we've got a couple of screws just holding the faceplate on here. Big VU meter that you can see. There's the drum for the radio tuning. So that's all self-contained. We don't have to worry about disengaging the radio dial cord or anything like that. You can see on the mech, it looks pretty intact. It looks quite relatively clean. I've got to say that the capstan and in particular the pinch roller is very heavily ferrite coated. That's going to need a darn good clean. So we just got to try and find out why there's no power getting to this. No power getting to this mech. So I think I might fire up the motor directly in a minute and just go from there. But I've just noticed there's a heck of a bend in this circuit board. Crikey, that's bowed like a banana, which is at about a 45-degree angle, or 30-degree angle anyway, and that's holding that circuit board right off. And as a result, it would appear, yeah, that screw is loose, because it's not actually, yeah, look at that. That screw is not engaged at all. So somebody has been in here and has been very ham-fisted. In fact, I can see another screw is missing from there. Yeah, alright. I think what I'm going to do first though is pick up this motor which is there, put some power directly into that just to see whether or not anything's spinning up. And so to that end, let's just zoom in a bit. I'm going to put a little bit of power at 12 volts on the DC here. With a bit of luck, at least the motor will spin and that will tell us that it's not seized. Yes. Good. Can you see the flywheel going round? And I've got to say there's some proper resistance to that as well, probably because of the diameter of the flywheel. Yeah, normally I'd take the cassette mech, I think, away to service it, but yeah, I don't know, I just think I need to access it from the back, and I'm a bit worried about this whole stressing of the circuit board, so I think first thing I'm going to do is just relieve the pressure of that first. And the only thing that's really landlocking me, I've managed to get one of the condenser mics out, but the other one is glued at quite a few points along its way, so I'm just going to desolder that. But whilst I was waiting for the iron to heat up, I've just gone in and cleaned and lubed all the sliders and the switches, and indeed if I just zoom out, you'll see the radio band selector switch as well, so that should give us our FM back, hopefully. And as I say, there's the volume sliders, they've also been cleaned and lubed. We'll check it all before we put it all back together, just to make sure, but hopefully that should have sorted it. And I've just mounted that board back on properly now. Both the brackets are nice and square. I've tightened up all the screws, so that should at least sort that problem out. So I've just cleaned and lubricated the other switches that I can see here, the function switch, the left and right record play bars just there. Not much I can do on this side really. I wondered if I could perhaps get to changing the belt and stuff, but it looks pretty captive, so I'm going to put it back over and remove the cassette mech from the other side, and then we'll be able to get to the belt from that way. Okay, I finally managed to straighten up the circuit boards on the back and get those on, reconnect everything up, and I've just got some DC hooked up here as well, and the speakers, just to see if we've got the radio back. Yeah, looks promising.
I told you the Olympic.
That's good.
Canada who won the Olympic.
Yep.
The final.
Good. Well, okay, so cleaning the switches has brought the volume back on that side, which is awesome.
Disqualified from the games.
Let's just check the tuning. FM coming through nice and clear. Obviously it's not going to be clear or have any stereo yet because we've got no antenna attached. Okay, here's the business end of the tape then. We can see the rest of the counter belt, which obviously we saw from the top earlier on, but look at this beauty. A massive belt. Now I know for a fact I don't have a belt of this size to be able to replace it right now, so I'm going to have to measure it and order it up anyway, but that's not the issue at the moment. The issue is getting some power to the actual cassette mech. Now as I see it, there's a pair of leaf switches just in here, and when I press play, now we know the motor works because we fed some power directly into that earlier on and did get the motor spinning, but somewhere there's a brake. See, now that looks like it's making contact. Okay, I've tried for continuity across the blades of the leaf switch and indeed the corresponding cables, and checked the solder joints on the board for these cables as well from the switch, and everything seemed to be okay in terms of the connection to the board, but still no continuity at the switch, and you can see when I press it, it should work there. And given that none of the functions work, be it fast forward, rewind or play, it's got to be the switch. So if I just try and jump it with a piece of wire, let's have a look. If I press play, that should engage those two blades. So if the switch is dirty or faulty, let's see. Yes, there we go. So all we've basically done there is made the connection, and to that end then, let's have a look. Let me just poke this switch closed manually, and there it is. So I'm going to remove the leaf switch. Overall, that's just going to be the easiest way to get in there and clean it. Give this a bit of a clean and maybe just tweak the leaves a little bit so that they pick up more easily. Genuinely haven't tried this yet, so don't know if it's going to work or not. Here we go. No. So the blades need a bit of adjusting, so I'll do that again. We'll do take two. Still need some more adjustments, so I've removed the switch and disassembled it so I can get in and bend those leaves, get them just how I need them. Right, I'm going to try a tape now. Now, obviously we haven't serviced this or changed the belts or anything, but I've just want to see whether or not well, A, whether or not it works at all, and B, whether or not it shuts off afterwards, because the leaves are so close to each other. So let's see. Okay, good. Rewind is strong. Does it stop? Yes, it does. Play. Nice. And come on. Ah, that was probably just a bit slow because of the bounce, I think. Yeah, it's stopping after each button, which means that the actual leaf switch is about as close as it can be, but it'll still turn off once we remove the transport controls. Good. Okay, happy with that. So I think on that basis, going to go and measure up the belts, clean the heads and the pinch roller and all that malarkey. Have a bit of a tidy up. Okay, so next job then is to remove both of the belts. I can then measure them up and get them on order. In the meantime, I can go ahead and clean up all the casings and stuff like that, get everything ready, clean the capstan head, pinch rollers, clean the mechanism, all that kind of stuff. If you're watching this on the long video, you'll see a bit of that now. If you're watching the shortened video, thank you very much for watching. I hope you're enjoying it. If you do want to see more detail or find out about belt sizes and stuff like that, please head over to my Buy Me a Coffee page and I'll send you the link for all the details for that. In the meantime anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get these belts off. That really is a beast. I'm a bit worried. It's almost like a record player belt actually. I don't know whether I'll be able to get one that big. Not too bad, but has seen better days, so we'll definitely go and order one up of those as well. Just check again. Yep, that motor's spinning up quite nice. I think I might actually get the flywheel out as well, because it's such a huge one. Let's have a look. It certainly is a decent size, but now we've got this off, I can give it a proper clean the capstan, clean the bearing surface for the belt, do the same for the motor as well, and give everything a bit of a zhuzh. Just going to put a tiny little bit of grease just on the backing plate, just some isopropyl alcohol and some fresh stuff just for the capstan, get that squeaky clean. The idler tyres were pretty good, to be honest. The take up was okay, but no harm in just giving them a bit of a clean while we're here. which are just a bit grimy. Not too bad. Pinch roller's seen better days, mind you. You can probably see that straight away. There's going to be plenty more to do on this. So I'm going to just clean up this pinch roller properly and get in here and clean out any sort of grime or dust or anything like that. Make sure everything's lubricated and working as it needs to be. And I'll get the belts on order. Okay guys, so it's the next day now and I'm pleased to say that the belts have arrived. So we'll get those on shortly, assuming they're the right size of course. So we've got the long flat belt there and also the counter belt. Now whilst I was waiting for the belts to arrive, I've given the inside and the outside of the casings a really decent clean. Honestly, this thing is brilliant. Every little bit of felt, you know, every little insert or adhesive pad on the casing is still original and intact. It's going to be absolutely lovely, I reckon. Now I've cleaned everything up, of course. You may have seen that with the idler tyres and the belts and the flywheel, and I've got the flywheel here actually. So that's all ready to sort of go back in now. But I have cleaned the pinch roller to a degree, but you can feel that you can probably hear that. It's quite hard really, to be honest, and there is still bits of tape, look, still trapped inside. So I'm guessing it had started to chew tapes due to sort of bad idlers or bad belt or something at some point. I just find putting a touch of grease on the washer actually stops it from flying across the room. Always a bonus. And there's the pinch roller assembly. You can see I tried to clean it as best as I could. Could do with a bit more cleaning, but it's quite hard. And I figured I'd probably be replacing it with a new one anyway, so that's what we'll do. As I say, I was just going to put a brand new rubber in, but this one isn't a regular dropout pin. It's actually got a pinned rivet. I don't know if you'll see that there with the focus, but it needs drilling out basically, and then either a new rivet or some sort of epoxy or something all putting back in. A lot of messing about for what it is, considering we don't need to do it. But if we ever get to a stage where we need to put a new one in, I do have one here, but there's no point making a big mess and messing about with things if we don't actually have to. So I'm going to go and put all this back together now, and then we'll get the belts on. We'll start with the counter. Nice. Okay, onto the main belt then. Yep, and the thrust clearance is just about nice. I've checked with the specs for this, and that's going to be just fine. Hopefully we'll be able to get some noise out of this. So I think that one is play. Okay, and stop. Okay, fast forward's working. Rewind's working. So far so good. Okay, so a quick update on the pinch roller then. I wasn't going to replace it. The belts and everything are running really nicely, but when I did the run-up checks on this with the calibration tape, there was a definite little bit of wow going on, and I could see that being linked to the pinch roller. It was a very specific part of the rolling procedure, as it were. So I did end up having to replace it after all. So what I've done is ground the rivet head off as best I can, as close, I don't know if you'll see that in the lights, but basically not taking any of the original material away, just taking the head off, and drove the pin out, which is there. And I thought, you know, reinstalling will be a reversal of that, only to find out that the new pinch roller axle is a tiny bit too small, so it needed to match the original axle. And I've tried drilling that out, and to be honest, it's all a bit Heath Robinson here. And what I've done is I've got it the right diameter, but actually it's very marginally out of true, literally the merest fraction of a millimetre. But obviously that's causing kind of like run out like that. I haven't installed it in the machine, but when I ran it through my fingers, it was giving me just that tiny bit out of true. So I think I'm going to have to go with the original moulded axle. To that end, I've got the rubbers here. I've just had no choice really. I'm hoping, oh no, so I'm just looking at it. Oh. I was going to say the original one is a bit dry and cracked. The new one that you can see there is all supple. The outer diameters are identical. I've just noticed the internal diameter is not the same now. So I've got to try and drill that out as well to match and get that over the pinch roller. Not enough to distort it, but not enough so that it's loose and spins loose when it tries to play the tape. Okay, there's the new pinch roller in, or at least the new rubber on the old axle. So I've got no idea how this is going to sound, but yeah, let's give it a go. That's a lot better actually. Yep, quite pleased with that. There's some earthing of course, because we've not sort of earthed everything down to the chassis yet, so you get a bit of hum. But yeah, I'm pleased with that. That'll be okay. Just a job. Just a quick tweak of the motor speed to hone it into 3000 kilohertz. So everything's finally done with the chassis. Let's get it into the case. Looking at the various multi-plugs, get the chassis screwed back in, get the case on, hook up the aerials, clean the knobs and the switches, and I'll see you on the other side of the fade for a reveal. So here it is then, the JVC RC-636, a rare beast indeed, and definitely worth recommissioning. So when I got hold of this one, it was pretty badly damaged, to be honest. I think it had a knock in transit. The back casing was loose and it just didn't work properly. I think the left channel was down, the radio was intermittent stroke non-existent. There was no power at all to the tape, so even without belts, the motor just wasn't spinning and it was just not working at all. So what have we done then? Okay, basically usual thing really. Stripped it out, cleaned the switches and the pots. We've reinstated the left hand channel and we've got the radio nice and strong as well. We've replaced various screws. Someone had been in here before and thought better of it, I think, because the circuit board was bent, there were screws out of place and missing. So just giving it some TLC really, gone through it, checked everything's in the right place and serviced it as per usual with new belts, cleaned the heads, cleaned the capstan, and the pinch roller. In the end we could only salvage the axle and replace the new rubber on it, so that's working nicely now as well. And finally I think we gave it a deep clean and a polish, polished the aerial, got all the plastics refreshed and looking great, and here it is. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It's a super example of a very rare machine, so I'm delighted to have had the chance to work on it, and hopefully you've enjoyed seeing it as well. We'll have a very quick listen.
This is JVC.
Loads of stations being picked up even within that relatively small bandwidth. So I did wonder whether I'd need to adjust the pilot signal on this, but we didn't need to in the end. It was purely the dirty switches and bad contacts that were making the FM so poor in the first place. Right, let's have a quick look at the tape then. Oh, nice. Okay, so mechanism works nice. We've adjusted the speed as well, so I'll just put a quick tape in there. I won't play it too loud. In fact, let me just see. Rewind and fast forward are working nicely. You can see the fast forward actually, the motor's turning and the counter's going nicely. And rewind, same again, and play. I can't play you too much for content match reasons, but we've adjusted the leaf switch in there as you saw, so we've got it to stop and start on demand now. And rewind, fast forward. Perfect. Good. Good stuff. So really happy with that. If I'm honest, at some point I'd like to recap it as well, just to bring the power and the frequency response back to the amp section for the cassette, but that's a job for another day. Basically though, we've got it working, we've got the radio back, we've got the tape working, new belts and all the rest of it, so I'm really pleased with that. Thanks very much indeed for watching. If you're watching the long version of this, thank you ever so much for your support. If you're watching the fairly truncated version, I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did want to see more detail on some of the minutiae of what I did to work on this one, then do check over the full version over on my Buy Me a Coffee page. Either way, thank you very much indeed. You take care. I'll be back soon. All the best for now. Bye bye.